Okay, so we're at the law of signs. Just a little bit of review of how to derive the law of signs. And I'm looking at the picture, and the first thing I'm going to do in the picture is drop a height over here, or an altitude. Right, comes off from the bottom. We're going to call it h. I'm going to write a few things down from this. And the first thing I do is write the sine of a, this really basic trigonometry at this point, is equal to the opposite, which is h, over side of the hypotenuse, which would be at b in this case. Then I look at the sine of b, and what would that be? It's the opposite, which is h, over the hypotenuse of that particular triangle there, which would be a. All right, let me solve for h, so you get b times sine a equals h. And the other one, h would equal, let's see, a times sine b. Well, h equals h, so to get b sine a equals a sine b. There's nothing wrong with that, but tradition has it we try to get things looking in a more memorable fashion. So what I'm going to do right over here is write the sine of a over a, and then I'd write the sine of b over b. And as you could imagine, we could continue with this with, maybe rotating the triangle or permuting the letters around, and you'd get certainly another relationship, like, for example, between B and C, or between A and C for that matter. All right, this kind of holds, and there's various ways of writing it down. All right, so what I'm going to do is, looking at the triangles that they've given me, is try to answer the questions. As I do this, I want to point out, I'm doing something a little different than the guy that created this page over here. I'm just writing exact answers down. All right, so what do I know? I know A is 80 degrees. I'll put this over here. I know A, side A is 5.1. They don't give me a unit on it, so let's say 5.1 units. And B is 2.6 units. All right? To solve a triangle means you're coming up at all sides. All right? Now I can make a recommendation in general. I would aim for the, coming up with the smallest angle. And kind of looking at it, I'm going to say B looks like the smallest angle there. So I'm going to write this down over here. So I'm going to say sine of B, I don't know what that is, by the way, over side B. Well, B I've written down as 2.6, but it's easier for me to write the letter B down instead. What's that going to equal? Well, I'm going to say the sine of 80 degrees over 5.1, or just A. It's easier to write A than 5.1. Now, I want to solve for the angle of B. The way I'm going to do that, I'm going to say sine B is equal to B times sine of 80 degrees. To be consistent, I think what I should do instead, and let me go over that to be consistent, because I'm just using letters. Let me just erase this 80 degrees now. And instead of using 80, I'll just use uppercase A. Right, just to be consistent. And I really should be consistent. So let me get my eraser out again, erase this over here, and say A. Right, over side A. And how do you get B? Well, B is going to be arc sine now. Arc sine of this, which is B sine of A over A. Right, I'm going to say that's what B is, and put a box in that. Now I'm going to go to Sage, and I'm going to do this in Sage, but right now I wouldn't worry about that so much. I'll do it in Sage. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'll get the approximants. I'm going to get the sheet. Hold on one second. All right, sorry, I had to walk over across the room, actually across my apartment, to get the answer key. And I did the computation before, but I'll do them again for you. So this is number 1, right? Let me go back to number 1. And number 1, B, I computed to be 30.14. All right, now someone's going to say, how do you get the other information in the problem? Well, what I know is I know A plus B plus C equals 180 degrees. Now, someone can say, what angles do you know? I know A and I know B, but I don't know C. So what's C going to be? 180 degrees minus A minus B. Again, this is my exam. This would be the answer. I do want to do the approximate for you. And again, you could do it by hand, but you have to get the 30.14 to do that. And if you were to do that, you would get 69.86 degrees, all right? Now, there's something else I need to come up with. I want to tell you what I found so far. I found almost everything except side C. Again, I'm going to make a recommendation, and the recommendation I'm going to make is use A, all right? Because I definitely know that's true, and because it's written in the picture, by the way. So I'm going to write down sine of A. I know that. That's a given in the problem, by the way. Over side A. Let me go back over here. I know A, the angle A, and I know side A. They're given, all right? That's not computed. And what do they want to get? They want to get side C now. So what I'm going to say is sine of C. Now, by the way, C is computed. There's no doubt about it. There could be a mistake in that. We'll go through how to do that, by the way, over side C. There's another way of writing this down, by the way. You could also write down A over sine A equals C over sine C. It's really the same statement, by the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say what C is equal to. Well, it's A times the sine of C over the sine of A. And that's what C equals. Again, this is my exam. This is what you put in a box, and you would call that a day. All right? So again, A is given. I want to point out A is given over here, 5.1. Sine C, I computed, was 69.86, and then the sine of A was 80 degrees. Right, now if you do this on a calculator, what are you going to get? You're going to get approximately 4.86. All right? So again, I'm not looking for that in the exam, by the way. It's really compute, though. All right, this is question number 2 now, and I'm looking at it, and it doesn't look that bad. I'll write this down for you. A equals 50.5 degrees. B equals 87.9 degrees. And let me just write down the first thing I'm going to come up with is the angle C. So what do I know? A plus B plus C equals 180 degrees. All right, let me write this down for you. And I want to know what C is. What's C going to be equal to? 180 degrees minus A minus B. Again, I'm going to say that's a good answer, but I'm going to say I could probably do that without a calculator. And how do you do that? Add A and B together and subtract from 180. And if you do that, you get 41.6 degrees. By the way, I'm not going to put the approximate over there. I'm assuming they're giving me what they consider to be exact number. We're not talking about significant additions over here, nor am I approximating that. That's actually an arithmetic problem. So I'm going to say, what else do I need to know? I need to know other things in the problem, and I need to know the sides, right? So what I'm going to do over here, I'm going to say sine of C over side C is going to be sine of B over side B, all right? Now, I don't know side B, by the way, but I want to solve for that. And certainly you can write this differently. I'm just going to, manipulate this thing. B equals, that's going to be C times sine of B over the sine of C. All right. Again, this is my exam. That would be an answer. All right. I want to do an approximate of that one over there. And what does that mean? I'm actually going to do the calculator. I'll do that later for you. But this turns out to be, this is B, right? 4.52. But I'll show you that in the calculator later. Now, I'm going to do the next one. And again, I'm going to use sine C again over side C. I'm going to say sine of A. I'll put the parentheses on that. Over side A. And what are we trying to do? We're trying to figure out what A is. So I'll solve that. A equals, well, it's going to be C times sine of A over the sine of C. All right? Again, if this is my exam, that would be the answer. I also want to put the approximate down for you. All right, so, it's C, which is, let me see if I have that written down for you. Yes, C is 3. Maybe I should write that over here. All right, C is given as 3. So you got the 3, sine of A. A was what number again? Put it over here. And again, I'll show you this on a calculator by 50.5. C we computed, and if you do that computation, you can get 3.49. All right? Let's go to the next question. Next question is, there's a picture to it. And, the picture, it's not accurate, by the way, but the bottom line, kind of reading it, certainly I want to point things out to you. The pilot's flying over a straight highway. He determines the angle of depression to 2 mileposts being 5 miles apart. So I'm going to point out, looking at the picture, These are the postings, A and B, and those things are 5 miles apart, 5 miles. All right? So I'm looking at it, and I'm going to keep reading it, and they say angle X is 32 degrees. And they go on to say angle Y is 48 degrees. All right? So again, read the pilot is flying over a straight highway, determines the angles of depression to 2 mileposts as shown. Now I'm making an assumption that he's flying horizontally. In the picture it looks reasonable to say that. Of course I would want to clarify that, because if he's doing something else, I'd have another issue over here. But I'm looking at this over here, and I'm going to say he's flying parallel to the ground. So this angle over here looks relatively simple to compute, because it'll be 180 degrees minus 32 minus 48. Well, let me just add those two numbers together. 32 and 48 would give you 80, and 80 from 180 is 100 degrees. So I got that covered. Now I just want to put a little line over here, right triangle. And what do you get over here? I get this angle. It's right triangle, by the way. What's it going to be? Well, that would be 40, let's see, it's going to be 90 minus 32, which is going to be, what's that going to be? 90 minus 32, right? Well, that's not so bad. That means this is 32. I don't have to do that. And if I do this one over here, little right triangle again, what I mean by that right triangle there, this is going to be 90 degrees minus 48 degrees. And what do you have here? Not do the computation. It's just simply 48 degrees. All right? So I got most of the groundwork done. I'm going to start to erase things I don't need anymore. I'm going to erase this over here. I'm actually going to erase this business over here as well. I don't need that anymore either. And I'm going to erase this. I don't need it anymore. I got my triangle over there. Now, I have to read the question, though. Find the distance the plane is from point A. And I'm going to say, okay, let's put this down. This is going to be angle C now. And this is going to be side B. And the distance to A is the length of B. So I'm going to write this down. So it's going to be sine. I'm actually going to write the numbers down now. 48 degrees over side B is going to be equal to the sine of 100 degrees over 5. And again, B is going to be in miles now. I'm going to solve for B. Looks relatively simple to do. B is going to be 5 times the sine of 48 degrees over the sine of 100 degrees. And this is in miles, by the way. Again, if I were, this is my exam, this is what you'd put a box on it. There's no calculators on my exam. However, I do want to recommend that you learn to use a calculator and be able to compute that. And I will show you how to do that in Sage, by the way. And this is approximately 3.77 miles. All right? So that one's done. And let me just make sure there's another question there, though, isn't there? The other question I got is find the elevation of the plane. And for me to do that, I want to point out elevation is really the height or the altitude. So I'm gonna call this height, and that's a right angle over there. And you know, I have to write it down, by the way. I'm going to say sine. This is right angle trigonometry. The sine of 32 degrees is equal to h. That's what I want to know, by the way, over b. Now, do I know what b is? I just computed it. So what's h going to be equal to? B times the sine of 32 degrees. All right? Again, if this is my exam, that's what I'd write down. And again, this is miles. However, you should learn how to use a calculator and be able to approximate h using a calculator. And this approximately is going to turn out to be about 2.0 miles. I'll put 0, 0. Again, I'll do that on a calculator for you. Let's keep moving. And question 4, I want to point out, if you're looking at question 4 and question 5, there's some similarities between the two. I want to point out it's really the same set of numbers. Like you have the A is 37 degrees, B is 4.2, and the A is 2.8 in both cases. My gut feeling, though, if your eyes are open, you probably should realize something about the angle B, which is being requested here. So the angle B here being requested is certainly less than 90 degrees, all right? And the angle B over here that's being requested is greater than 90 degrees. Now, before I say anything about that, I want to point out that, you know, the sine, I'm going to be erasing this over here, of some angle, let me just say like 30 degrees, is really the same thing as the sine of 180 degrees minus 30 degrees. It's the same exact thing, by the way. Now, if your eyes are open, You should be able to tell the difference between 30 and 150 though. And my eyes were open for this particular problem, by the way. And we'll go through that in stages, all right? Now, I'm always saying if you're using the law of sines, head for the small angle first. Well, B is a small angle. I can head for that pretty easily. What are you going to get? The sine of B. I don't know what B is, by the way. Over side B. I'll write this over here. Let me just point out that's written down. I'm going to trust them on that. And that's going to be equal to what? I'm going to say the sine of A. The sine of A is also written down. I'll show you where that's written down. This is going to be A. Right, maybe I should write these down. So I said B is 4.2, and angle A is going to be 37 degrees. I'm using uppercase letters for angles, lowercase letters for lengths of sides. And we also know side A, and what's that going to be? 2.8. So what goes over here? A. Now someone says, what are you looking for? We're looking for B. So let's, big B, by the way, that's the angle. That's going to be B times the sine of A over A. I'm going to put this down now. B equals arc sine. It's going to be B times sine A over A. All right? Again, this is my exam. That would be the answer over there. I also want to point out I will be going to Sage, and I'll be computing that. And this turns out to be 64.52. All right? Again, someone's going to say, are you going to do the same thing again? I really don't need to. I already know what B is, right? However, my eyes are open. I know it's not that number. It's not 64.52. What is it? It's 180 degrees minus that number, which is going to be B, all right? That's going to be the answer over here, all right? Now again, if you have a calculator, let me get my eraser out because I want to approximate it. If you have a calculator and you can compute B, which we just did, you can also do the subtraction on the calculator as well. And what are you going to get there? 115.48 degrees. All right? So I think that's done. That's something about what's called the ambiguity about this over here. Now, what I want to claim over here is, looking at these things, my claim is there's not much to memorize, including, the case where you got side A, and the ambiguous case for it. So I'm going to say, if you have a picture, it's good, but a lot of times you have a picture, it could be quite deceptive. For example, over here, I want to point out, this is the height of the triangle. Let me get my eraser out. And when they say it's height of the triangle, it's height of the triangle. If that's the case over here, this is a right triangle. There is no ambiguity there. Now over here, I'm looking at this over here, and I'm wondering, is the A, like for example, is the A equal to H? And if that's the case, there's no ambiguity there, all right? But if the A is greater than the H, I'd have two choices, by the way. And why is that? If the A is greater than H, it's actually extending, and it could look like this over here, or it could look like this over here, if it's greater than that. Now, granted, I'm not the best artist over here. I want to point out where that picture is over here. So in this case over here, the A is greater than the H in the problem, all right? That's going to result in two triangles. My gut feeling, though, is that if you have a picture, you should know what the picture is giving you. Now, if the A is less than H, you don't have a triangle. It's given to get over here. This one's interesting over here. And again, I'm not going to say you should memorize these things. You should draw a picture and think about it. I'm always saying head for the small angle if you can. But over here, you got A is greater than B, right? A is greater than B. Now, certainly, knowing that A is greater than B, it's only going to be one case that could happen over there, if A is greater than B, all right? So my hint about this one over here is try to, when you're solving by law of sines, draw a picture, draw the triangle, and I would always look to do the small angle first. If you can't do that for some reason, look at the picture and see if the angle is small or large, all right? Like this one over here, clearly small. Law of sines is going to work beautifully. If you look at this one over here, the B is big. You know it's going to be whatever law of sine turns back to you, you got to do the 180 minus B to get the correct answer. Again, I'll be doing this Sage for you in a bit. Thank you.